Can you believe it's been 10 years since Ghana counted its citizens, and another census is on the way? The Ghana Statistical Service has commenced a mapping exercise throughout the country as part of the preparations towards the conduct of the 2020 Population and Housing Census. Now, this mapping exercise seeks to update the 2010 census enumeration areas. How effective, though, can it be in counting Ghanaians, especially in this age of technology? In the studio with me is Mr. Emmanuel George Osei. Now, he is the head of governance and human development at the Statistical Service. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you.
Now, I'm curious, we're remapping the areas so that we can do this 10 years after the last time we did it. Tell us why this exercise is necessary.
Thank you very much. Like you said, we're remapping the whole country so that we can go into the 2020 census and then be able to enumerate all Ghanaian, all people living in Ghana at that time. One of the reasons why we need to go back and redo this exercise is that we have changes taking place in the country. For example, people move from place to other places. For this 10-year period, we cannot say that people have been static, but there's dynamism within the system. So people move from one area to the other. Let me give you an example. If you take a place like Kumasi, in a doom where I've been for some time, you will realize that most of the places where people reside are being turned into shops. And even if you go to Accra, Okanshi area and all those things, it is happening. In most of our regional capitals, these things are going on. And therefore, the population at that time will reduce. We are doing this exercise putting in mind that during the enumeration area, we'll have about 500 people to be enumerated by each enumerator. And for us to be able to know that, we need to go back to the field, take samples, and then be able to see what is happening. And then based upon that, we delineate what we call the enumeration areas, as you said, so that people can go and count. And that is one of the reasons why I was giving you one of the reasons, us being that people move from place to place. And then people also die. We also give birth. And so because of this, you realize that an area that we need to go and work in might be above the 500 or so threshold that we want to look at, or below. And so we need to go there and then also demarcate the areas. Another issue is about outskirts of towns. You know, people expand as the towns expand, as the population increases. You want to build your house, I want to build my house, somebody will also want to build this. But 10 years ago, it was not so. So all those areas will not be in our database. And therefore, we need to go and then update the area so that we can get a comprehensive data on the country, so that when we are going in, it will be very feasible to be able to go in and do all these things. Again, it is based upon this that we will know the number of people to recruit for the exercise, and then the logistics and resources that are also needed. If we don't do that, we will not be able to know all these things, and therefore becomes difficult when we say we're going down 2020 to enumerate.
Very well. Now, it occurs to me that if we were properly registering every birth and death, if our migration records were accurate, and if we had a proper addressing system, you would have been able to tell us the population of the country from your office.
Yes, that can be done. Is
that a goal that you're working towards, or are we looking at an endless future of census every 10 years?
Yes, that is a goal that we've started some years back, trying to see how best we can look at our civil registration and then vital statistics system, how best we can look at that. Because we know that, like we're saying, some people when they give birth will not go to register with the births and deaths registry. Some people, when somebody dies within the family, will not go to register the death. And we also know that we are not able to go to, when one person moves, we don't have any records for this essence, for the movement. But you know that population changes because of deaths, and then migration. So when we are able to get all these three accurately, then from year to year, we can correctly say that this is the population, not based upon estimates, because that can actually give us a better source of data for our population in the country.
My question is actually, what are you doing towards that goal?
What we have done is that we have looked at the CRVS system, that the Civil Registry and Vital Statistics system in the country. In 2014, we went around the country looking at what the situation is. Then we brought the results. We now develop a strategic document for which we are following now to be able to make sure that in the near future, we will have a perfect system where births and deaths will be registered. When people move, it will be known, and then all these things will be factored into it. So it is something that is actually going on, and then we have partners who have come in to support us to be able to build this system very well. So it isn't something that will be endless, so that every 10 years. But in spite of that, if we have that system, we'll still go in, because we do what we call population and housing census. It is not only people that we go to count, but also the houses that we have within the system. So for the 10-year period, even in the advanced countries where they have all these, the CRVS being that perfect for them, they still do population and housing census to be able to know within the 10-year period, because a lot of changes take place that we need to look at, not only with the human and all those things, but there are certain characteristics, because you need to go to people and then be able to know the work they do and all those things. So that is...
Recently, an international organization pegged our population at something above 29 million. Does the Statistical Service support that figure? Do you have evidence
currently
of
our projected population, we estimate population to be around 29.6 or 8, 29 point something million. That is what we, and then in 2020, we are expecting to get a population of about 31 million thereabouts. So if they say so, I mean...
What goes into working out these estimates?
There are a lot of assumptions that we do. Like I said, we take into consideration the births, the deaths, migration, and all those things. So there are formulas that we use to be able to look at the growth rate per between 2000 and 2010. Then we know we have two decimal decennial data. So we are able to calculate the growth rate at which Ghana is growing per population. Based upon that, we make projections, bringing into assumptions, into play a lot of assumptions that we look at, so that based upon the growth rate, which currently we have about 2.5%, then annually we do our calculations, and then based upon that, we're able to get the annual growth rate, the annual growth for the population.
Now, population figures are significant not just for the total number of people, but also for the population structure. Yes. How many people are under a certain age, and how many people are dependent on others, and so forth. Tell us, what are the trends when you look at the Ghanaian population in terms of the dependent population? Is it growing or is it shrinking?
If we look at those above 65, the percentage is growing. In fact, I don't have the specific data here, yes, but those above 55 from the 1960 population, 1970, 1984, 2000, 2010, we've realized that the population, those age 65 plus, is growing. And then again, also, we also realized that we have a very youthful population. I think about 40-something, between 40-45% are within 0 to 15 years. So we have a very youthful population. So if we build what we call population pyramid, we realize that we have a broad base, and then it keeps on going to the top, and then it keeps on turning. So that is how our population structure is. You have a broad base of very youthful population, and then
the numbers dwindle.
But if you look at the dependency ratio that you're talking about, I think it's about 1:1. Yes, thereabout.
And the idea is to shrink it, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, if you're able to get about one person dependent upon two people, I mean, that is a very good thing. But if you have two people depending upon one person, then that is a difficult, because then it means that, I mean, one person is looking after too many people. But if too many people are looking after one person, then that gives it a very good thing to talk about for our country.
Indeed. Now, the point of all these figures is to aid us in planning.
Yes.
Now, I want you to tell me honestly, how much interaction does the planning ministry, for example, have with the statistical service? How much of your data do they access, and how useful do they find it? In fact, how often do they even come to you for information to do their job?
We have a very good working relationship with the National Development and Planning Commission. We have a very, very, very good relation with them. So our data from our censuses through our surveys and the little administrative data we are able to pick, they pick it and then we use it. We have as for that, like you said, I should tell you the truth. The truth is that we have a very good working relationship with the National Development Planning Commission.
What sort of things do they use this data for?
Well, they are able to use that to make policies, and then the assemblies also, the assemblies work under them. They have a supervisory role over the assembly. So they use it, and then the assemblies also use what they come out, the policies they come out. The assemblies also use that. The ministries, departments, and then agencies also use the data that the National Development Planning Commission collaborates with us to be able to do their work effectively.
So what are the timelines for this exercise that you're embarking on?
Currently, they've moved to the 3 northern regions. We're expecting that by the end of September 2019, we would have finished with every mapping exercise we want to do, so that we move into the various aspects that we want to look at. Regarding the census itself. So our point is to end by September 2019. We have moved them currently. They are in the 3 northern regions. We have teams, about 40 teams in the 3 northern regions. They started work, I think, was it Monday or so, and we're believing that gradually, as they finish from one district, each team is for a district. Each team is for a district. They're going to work in the districts and then come out with a number of enumeration areas that we're going to use for the census. So as they finish with one region, they come down until we get to the total country for the exercise. So we are feeling that as they will go into various homes and all those things, people will see them. People have always been saying that you always come to us. We don't know what, they're always coming to us. Yes, we come to them because we want Ghana to use data to be able to plan well, and then all of us will be happy.
We wish you the very best of luck with that exercise.
Right.
Emmanuel George Osei is the head of governance and human development at the Statistical Services.